about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Scarlet Fu and Alix Steel here to take you through the closing bell. It's a global simulcast, which means that we have now brought in Massar and Tim Stenovec to help make sense and really show you the numbers here and show you the context of what's going on in the equity markets. Welcome to our Bloomberg Television, radio, and YouTube audiences worldwide. Massar, I think we all knew when the opening bell was about to ring that this was going to be a brutal day given the jobs report we got.
Interesting day, but you know what I find fascinating is that we're not seeing, at least right at this moment, some selling into the close, that we are off our worst levels of the session. Yes, a technical correction, 10% on the NASDAQ 100 from that July peak. But having said that, I don't know. I feel like we've had a lot of guests who said, let's take a breather. It's one report. We know there's a trend. We're concerned about a weakness, but not the world isn't falling apart.
Yeah, that's exactly what Torsten Slok told us from Apollo. He joined us at the top of our hour. And he said, look, I changed my view after we heard from the Fed yesterday, and I changed my view after seeing the data today. We do think the Fed will cut in September, but he said this is just one data point, and he still pointed to a lot of alternative data that showed that what he believes is a very strong U.S. consumer and a very strong economy.
Well, what's come up in the last hour for us is that the narrative has changed. Like the story has changed. You can parse through the data in a different way, but overall, that's kind of what we're dealing with. And you can definitely see that if you just look at the VIX, not only the jump, but the VIX curve and how quickly we've re-rated. Even the volatility of the VIX has been impacted significantly, and holding that volatility regime higher would also be another shift for the markets. All right, those are your closing bells. Whew, we made it there. Volume quite elevated. We're still settling out here, but it looks like we got the Dow Jones Industrial Average off by 1.5%, S&P off by a little less than 2%, the Nasdaq off by 2.4%. And as Carol, you were saying, it could have been worse just even a few hours ago.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks, so staying with the big cap names here, the S&P 500, 372 names to the downside, 131 gaining ground. But I just want to point out, guys, you want to guess what the worst performing name in the S&P 500 is this week?
Not Intel?
It is Intel.
Okay.
Over to you, Scarlett.
Hey, Scarlett, good guess.
Well done, well done.
I pass. Okay, let's take a look at how the sector performances shape up. You see a lot of red there, and that is mainly because of weakness across 8 of the 11 sectors. Consumer discretionary losing 4.5%. Financials down 2.4%. Energy losing 2.25%. Tech, by the way, is only off by 2%. I mean, there's 4 sectors that have fallen more than tech. What's notable, of course, is those that have bucked the decline. You've got consumer staples, utility, and REITs. Definitely a play for defensive sectors, for sectors that pay out consistent dividends and that are supposed to do well in tough times.
All right, guys, let's get to some of the individual gainers. And we talk about, sometimes market rotation. We'll get to that, and I'll show you why I say that. First of all, though, Apple did eke out a gain at its highs, up 3.3% in the trade, finishing the day with a gain of about 0.7%. So it was one of the top gainers throughout the day on the NASDAQ 100. Analysts optimistic about the company's iPhone 16 launch and AI rollout plans. Apple did predict that its new AI features will spur iPhone upgrades in coming months, helping the company reemerge from a sales slowdown that has hit as China businesses, especially hard. So upbeat third quarter results, mostly we know, we broke it down last night, but those sluggish sales in China. So here's what I talk about market rotation a little bit. Clorox is your number one gainer in the S&P 500 today. Shares jumping up 7.5% here at the close. Company reported fiscal fourth quarter adjusted EPS that topped the average analyst estimate, issued a better than expected profit outlook for the year. And on to DoorDash we go. This one finishing just off its highs, up more than 8% today. Number 2 gainer in the NASDAQ 100. The company's third quarter adjusted EBITDA forecast coming ahead of consensus estimates. It also showed delivery order growth, so few gainers in that Friday trade.
Yeah, just a few. There were a lot of decliners, though, that I could choose from. And in fact, every single decliner on my list today fell at least double digits. I got to start with Intel. It's down 57% so far this year, guys, after today's drop of 26%. It's the biggest single-day drop. It's going all the way back to the early 1980s when Bloomberg started keeping track, perhaps going all the way back to its IPO. Right now, trading at levels last seen since 2015. It shed more than a quarter of its value today. The company gave that grim forecast. It laid out plans to slash 15,000 jobs. It signaled that they're ill-equipped to compete in the artificial intelligence era. Also suspending dividend payments to shareholders starting in the fourth quarter. And it's going to continue that until, quote, cash flows improve to sustainably higher levels. The company has paid a dividend going back to 1992. Shares of Amazon falling by 8.8%. Closing by 8.8%. At one point, it was down 10%. Shares falling the most in more than 2 years. Shares fell after the company told investors that profits for now will take a backseat to heavy spending on AI. Amazon said that operating income for the current quarter that ends next month will be $11.5 billion to $15 billion. Analysts were looking for $15.7 billion. And then check out what shares of Snap did today. They fell 27%, which for a lot of other companies, that would be a superlative going back the most since, in many years or the most ever. Well, it's just the worst day for Snap since going back to February when it fell 35% in a single day. So it just shows the volatility and the big one-day moves that this company makes. The company did report disappointing second quarter sales. It gave a lower than expected outlook for earnings in the current period. Actually did see stronger user growth, marking a step back in the company's years-long quest to rebuild its core advertising business. But still, second quarter sales and lower than expected outlook disappointed investors. Shares of Snap finishing the day down by 27%, down 45% so far this year.
Yeah, it's also because Meta did well on ads, so I wonder if there was also a tough comp on that one. All right, guys, bond market super active today. Buying across the curve, but the buying in the front end was very dramatic. You're looking at 2-year yields on the day down 26 basis points, but on the week, the 2-year yield is down 50 basis points. God. That's the kind of move that we saw back in March of 2023 when the SVB crisis bubbled up into view. And just to point this out, the 210 curve steepened the most since 2022. I mean, these are really deep superlatives in a bond market that has been very whippy and moved a lot very, very fast.
All right, so you might, as an investor, think you've had a rough week. But if you are an investor who also rides New Jersey Transit, you've really had a rough week. I don't know if you guys saw this story. It's among the most read. It just starts with this. One passenger suffered repeated panic attacks. Another held hands to try and comfort each other. Firefighters attended to at least 2 people with medical issues. Business workers shed layer after layer of clothes drenched in sweat because a New Jersey Transit train last night got stuck underground and then the air conditioning didn't work.
Wednesday evening.
Wednesday evening.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God.
I'm sorry, Wednesday evening.
By the way, the context here is there's a bit of a heat wave in the Northeast. I mean, the humidity is out of control. Every day it's like 89, 90 degrees,
like
but
a
it
sauna
feels like
outside.
95 degrees.
Yeah.
This is the stuff of true nightmares. Like, this is the stuff that, you never want to have happen to you and that you get. Maybe it's just me, guys. I don't know.
No. This
I
is
do
like
not want to
heat.
be stuck
You can get heat stroke and stuff.
under
like,
a
this
body
is not,
of water in a train with no power, no air conditioning, and no idea when this thing is going to start moving. Apparently, only Verizon service worked on the phone, so passengers were giving each other their phones so they could make calls and make adjustments. They ultimately got towed back to Penn Station. Some people
Where they
spent
started
the night.
from, by the way.
They had to get a diesel engine from Amtrak to tow them back to Penn Station.
Did they get Krispy Kreme cards or something?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe McDonald's.
Infrastructure.
So
Can you imagine getting back on a train after that?
You can't blame anyone for wanting to leave the tri-state area and going maybe down south to Florida, right? The problem there, though, is that you have impossible traffic because so many people have the same idea. They're all moving to Florida, and now you're stuck in gridlock all the time. The cities in Florida don't necessarily have the infrastructure to deal with this influx of people who have come in and have stayed since the pandemic.
Wait, so that's seriously a thing? So now we're looking at crazy kind of traffic, but now in Miami because all the New Yorkers left and went there?
It's costing commuters an average of 70 hours each year, and that adds up to, according to one estimate, $3.1 billion in losses.
Oh, what are you going to throw out there?
Public transit, infrastructure?
That's a big problem,
investment there? Would that sort of alleviate some of the pain that we're talking about?
But do they have public transit in the same way that we're used to? No, right?
Eight
out of
10 have driver's license,
pain.
right?
Yeah.
8 out of 10 have driver's license. So there is no mass transportation.
How do you do that? Do you raise taxes in order to pay for that, or
No, you can't do that. It's Florida, right?
Well, then what do you do?
You got to hit the road.
Oh, wait.
That's what you do.
Ken Griffin, you came down. Maybe you can help us solve this problem?
Maybe it's a private. Maybe it's a private thing.
There are private solutions, but they cost. Yeah, they cost money.
Got to call Elon to build the boring company tunnel there, right?
I love those tunnels.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, if it's actually implemented.
All right, you guys, stay cool. Hopefully it's going to ease a little bit. Maybe
I hope you don't take New Jersey Transit
I was like,
home,
good
by
luck
the
getting
way.
home, Carol.
I'm getting into a tunnel very soon, guys. All right, have a great weekend, you guys. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals, folks. We will see you again, same time. Some of us, I think Tim's going on vacation.
That's okay. I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, but we'll see you guys on Monday.
Safe travels, Tim.
Thank you.